Safety check, magazine empty, and chamber clear. All right, welcome to the video, everybody. What we're going to be going over in this video is my current EDC setup, and more specifically, we're going to be talking about the different parts that I changed on my EDC handgun and why I wanted to go aftermarket with certain parts and why I wanted to leave other parts in their stock configuration. But before we go over that parts list, I want to talk about the setup in itself. So currently I am carrying a Glock 19 Gen 3 with an extra magazine, and that is all being housed inside of my T-Rex Arm sidecar. I like the T-Rex Arm sidecar. I might do a separate review on this in a future video, but just a little bit of an overview. It is an appendix carry holster. It allows me to carry an extra magazine, and I think the quality is pretty decent on it. There are a few weird artifacts on here from manufacturing, but nothing has hindered the function of it at all, so I don't really have any problems with the holster. I just like the holster, and I think that's what everybody should look for in a holster. Not to go with one that everybody says you should, just go with one that fits your body type, fits your carry style, and something that you like. So that's why I carry this holster. I also currently am carrying Fort Scott Munitions tumble rounds. I don't have a ton of experience behind the gun with tumble rounds. Normally I would be carrying hollow points, but unfortunately at the time I went to purchase new carry ammo, this was the only ammunition that was available. I did a little bit of research on it, and according to ballistics gel, you can have a pretty decent cavity with tumble rounds compared to hollow points. So I do have trust in this ammunition, and I know a lot of other people do as well. So I am currently carrying this, but generally I would be carrying some sort of hollow point over the tumble rounds. All right, so coming back to the handgun, the Glock 19 Gen 3. So one thing that I really like about Glock is that they make an extremely reliable handgun at a very reasonable price. And that is the reason why I have opted to not change a lot of parts on this handgun. So internally, I have 0 modifications on this handgun because I do not believe that it needs it. So there's a reason that most military agencies, military and police agencies are using Glocks as their everyday carry. One reason, they are very reliable, and another reason is they are very reasonably priced. I think Glock did an amazing job making a very reliable handgun at a very reasonable price, and that is why I carry the Glock 19, is because one, I like the Glock 19. I think it is a perfect size. It is not too long, it is not too small. A lot of people like to carry maybe a Glock 26. It is a very small handgun, very small frame, and it's just not very comfortable in my hands. But the Glock 19 is comfortable in my hands. I can shoot it very well, and that is the reason that I carry a Glock 19 versus other Glocks on the market. So this one is a Gen 3. I do have some gripes with the Gen 3, namely is just the magazine release. So the magazine release on these Gen 3s is very, very small. It is kind of challenging to hit sometimes if you have smaller hands, which I do have fairly small hands. I can reach the magazine release without moving my hand, but I do not have the strength to be able to actually depress the magazine release. So kind of what I have to do is shift my hand a little bit, release, and then I can readjust from there. So that is a little bit of a gripe that I have with the Gen 3, but other than that, it is just as comparable to any other Glock generation, the 4s and the 5s. In the future, I would like to upgrade to a 4 or a 5 simply because of that magazine release, but other than that, this handgun is just as reliable as any of the other Glocks, so I will continue to carry this one. So as far as modifications that I have done to this handgun, there are only 2 modifications that I've done. First modification I've done that you might have noticed already is the sights. So if you carry Glock, if you shoot Glock, if you talk to anybody that's ever shot a Glock, everybody always says that these stock Glock sights are absolutely horrible. And I entirely agree. So these are the stock Glock sights. The problem with these sights is they are cheap, they're not durable, they're made of plastic, they can break. I don't have any sighting issues with these. I mean, you can hit targets with them, but as far as just durability and visibility, they are not very good sights. And as you can see, even when I pressed these sights off, when I was installing my new sights, I actually put a little indentation on the side of it. Not a big deal, but it just kind of goes to show how little abuse these things can take. Just pressing them off of the slide damaged them a little bit. So the current sights that I am carrying are the Trijicon HD night sights. So I really like these sights. They currently go for $103.99. That is what I purchased them for on Amazon. And they do have tritium inserts in both the front and the rear sights. So if you take a look at the rear sight here, you can see those two green dots. Those are tritium sights. A little bit hard to pick up on camera, but these rear ones do glow. And the front has that orange dot, and then it has a smaller tritium insert in the center. So I really, really like these sights. I've been shooting them for a few months now, and they're so much easier to find than the stock Glock sights. Now, when I say easy to find, I mean when I first picked up this handgun with the new sights on it, I was able to bring the gun up to my eye, and I was able to find the sights immediately. Versus with the Glock sights, I would have to do a little bit of hunting with them. So when it came to the Glock sights, I did train with them and I was able to find them somewhat easily, but even with a little bit of training, I still had to do a little bit of hunting to find them every single time. These sights are very prominent, very large, and I have no issues finding these sights. And they are all metal sights, so they are extremely durable when you are doing one-handed manipulations. That is another reason that people try to opt out of these sights, is for one-handed manipulations. If you're racking the slide off of a metal belt buckle or a hard-soled shoe, you can damage these pretty easily. These do have a little bit more of a hook on the back of them as well to aid in one-handed manipulation. I don't typically do one-handed manipulation training. I have done it in the past, and I definitely have trust in these sights. There is no way that I'm going to be breaking off this rear sight trying to rack the slide off of my belt buckle or something silly like that. So if you are curious how I went about changing the sights, I did purchase a wire gear press tool. This is a very nice tool to have if you're going to be changing dovetail sights. There are people that have videos out there that show using a punch and a hammer and just punching the sights out. But I think if you're going to be doing more than one sight change, I would recommend getting a press. This thing was only $46.90, so $50 gets you a decent press tool. Some people have broken the little ears off of the press itself, but I didn't have any issues with it, and it is definitely a life-saving tool and makes installing new sights a lot easier. So the other modification that I went for on this handgun is these grips. So these current grips, these are Fox grips. I got these ones on Amazon as well. They were $15, pretty cheap, but they've seemed to have held up very well. So a lot of people go with the Talon grips. I personally do not like the Talon grips simply because of the looks of them. I think Talon grips are very ugly. These are very similar, but instead of having a one-piece sticker that goes around the entire grip of the handgun, these Fox grips are separate pieces. So you have separate stickers for the finger grooves, you have a separate sticker for each side of the grip, and then you have a separate sticker on the back. And I just think it looks a little bit more pleasing versus the Talon grips. I also opted to go for a sticky style grip versus stippling. Now I don't have a problem with stippling. I probably will stipple this handgun in the future, but at the time when I purchased these Fox grips, I didn't want to invest the money in stippling, and I did not want to do it myself. I didn't want to mess up my EDC handgun and then have to get a new frame or try to hire somebody to fix my mistakes. I'm a little bit OCD about certain things like that, and I didn't want to do it myself, and I didn't really want to invest the money in having somebody else do it. But if you do want to go the stippling route, I do really recommend it. One thing I would say to look out for when it comes to stippling is try to get a stippling that is not extremely aggressive. So one really nice thing about these Fox grips is they are a soft, rubbery texture. They are very, very grippy. I mean, they are rubber, but there's no scratchiness to them. One of the problems with stippling is if you get a very aggressive stipple on your handgun, what can happen is if you carry inside the waistband, it's going to be chafing you all day long. So what you're going to want to do is talk to somebody who's stippling your handgun, or if you're doing it yourself, be very careful. Try not to have too much penetration with your stippling to where you have very sharp edges. Or if you do, go ahead and sand that stuff down, smooth your stippling out. You'll have a much more pleasant carry experience versus being chafed all day by your very aggressive stippling. So like I said at the beginning of the video, those are the only two modifications that I have. I haven't made many modifications because simply the Glock doesn't need that many modifications. There are some things that I wanted to change to make my shooting experience more pleasant, one being the grips and one being the sights, but other than that, I think that out of the box, the Glock is arguably one of the most perfect handguns as far as reliability. So I can take a brand new Glock out of the box and I can holster it up and I can bring it to the range and I can shoot it and I know it's going to shoot. When I pull this thing out of my holster in a defensive situation, I know that that round is going to go off and I know that my round is going to go downrange. That is why I carry the Glocks, and that is also the reason why I have made 0 internal modifications to this handgun. Now a lot of people do trigger jobs. I don't even want to do a trigger job. I want to leave this Glock as stock as possible because I want to keep that reliability there that comes directly from Glock themselves. So if any of you guys are looking to purchase any of these parts that I have listed in this video, I will leave links down in the description for the pages. It's all going to be under Amazon, all of the Amazon pages that I purchased all of these parts from if you want to look into them yourselves. I do highly recommend everything that I've put on this handgun. So the sights, the grips, I highly recommend them. The sight tool that I used for changing my sights, I highly recommend that tool as well. I think they're all fairly generic tools. I think they all work the same, but I will link the exact one that I used. And in the future, I probably will do a more in-depth going over my entire EDC, but as far as the handgun that I carry, this is what I carry every day. These are the changes that I've made, and hopefully you have a little bit more of an understanding as to why I made the changes that I did and sort of my philosophy when it comes to modifying an EDC Glock. One thing I want to say real quick, please train, do dry fire, do live fire. You can become very proficient with any handgun. You don't need to make a bunch of modifications to it to make yourself a better shooter. Being a good shooter and being able to manipulate a handgun well all comes down to training. So that is the message that I want to leave you guys on at the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.